Episode 5 Season 3 of the Bad Batch is here and we need to break it down, so let's get straight into it. Omega wakes up hugging her Lula doll while the sun shines and the birds sing, and this peaceful, serene depiction is a welcome sight and really juxtaposes her mornings on Tantiss, and there's a very clear feeling of safety being evoked in this scene. Omega is greeted by Hunter and Wrecker, who tosses her a fruit of some sort, telling her that it's from Shep and Lyana. This is referring to Shep and Lyana Hazard, the father-daughter duo that was introduced back in Season 2 on Pabu, showering the Bad Batch with the warmest hospitality possible. This brief mention of Shep and Lyana also tells us that the Bad Batch are currently on Pabu as well. Omega wonders where Crosshair is, and we find Crosshair on the beach practicing his shooting skills. We see AZ, the medical droid the team picked up from Kamino, holding fruit for Crosshair to shoot, and it does get a little perilous for the droid due to Crosshair's hand still shaking. Crosshair gives Omega a quick brief on what makes a good sniper, and he takes note that Wrecker and Hunter are watching him, recognizing the team's distrust of his presence. Omega tells him that he has to speak to them to build trust, which makes sense as it was hinted in an earlier episode that she would be the bridge that brings them back together. Echo arrives on Pabu, and the team figures that with Nalasay's stolen datapad, they might be able to find out more information on Tantiss. However, access will only work if they find an imperial terminal, and Crosshair has an idea of where to find one. Hunter tells Omega that she should stay behind, but she doesn't agree. Crosshair tells her,
"Don't hold it against him. He's only worried about you."
And also tells her that she is, after all, just a kid. Omega corrects him by pointing out that she is technically older than them, which makes sense as unlike the rest of the team, Omega was not given growth and aging enhancements, which is why she's still able to be a child much longer than the rest of the clones, making her technically the older sister. And while this is clearly intended to be a lighthearted moment, throughout this episode, Omega does seem to act as the more mature one of the squad, encouraging each one to talk to one another, really acting like the big sister of this episode.
I said talk to him, not argue with him.
He started it.
Wrecker hands Crosshair his old armor back, and this was done as a way for Wrecker to make his peace with Crosshair, and for a way to inspire some hope in Crosshair that there is still a relationship to salvage. The team arrives on Barton 4, which is the same planet Crosshair's Season 2 episode took place, a crucial moment in which Crosshair finally realizes that the Empire does not have the clones' best interest in mind. We see that Crosshair's armor has been spruced up and the team make their way into the Imperial base. The team shut down the outside sensors to restore the power, and while they go through the pad, we see Crosshair head off on his own. We then see Crosshair find cloned helmets, and we see him pick up one in particular. And this helmet here, while not the exact same, does evoke Commander May's helmet, the one clone Crosshair really built up a connection with during his time on Barton 4. Other clones Crosshair also met were Hexx and Veetch, and all of them never made it off the planet. Hunter witnesses Crosshair arranging the helmets but remains unconvinced that he has truly changed. We get a quick look at the pad's contents, and honestly it's pretty much nonsensical, and the creators probably don't want anyone dissecting it and spoiling what comes next. Either that or the contents of the pad are still somewhat encrypted, but that's probably not the case, since Echo can immediately read its contents.
There are even more clone prisoners on Tantiss than we thought.
Crosshair goes outside to check the perimeter, and Hunter, who distrusts him, follows him out where the two have a confrontation with each other. Crosshair finally explains the full story of how he killed Lieutenant Nolan, and he takes a step further by pushing back by stating that he tried to warn them about the danger to Omega prior to her capture, and that Hunter's anger about his own failing to protect and rescue Omega are misplaced on him. And in a way, Crosshair does have a point here. Besides the obvious point that Crosshair once betrayed them, Hunter is also grappling with his own failures and has essentially decided to play the blame game as a way of coping. It's a very nuanced conversation between these two clones that really adds a lot of color to their relationship dynamics and their own personal character. The moment is interrupted when a giant worm attacks them as the sensors have been deactivated, forcing the two to work together. In the process, Crosshair risked his own life rescuing Hunter, proving himself to the team. The team managed to turn on the signals, finally stopping the worm, and by the end of the episode, we finally see the beginning of a healing process. Crosshair admits his mistakes to Hunter privately, and Hunter comes around and empathizes with him, indicating a turn for the better. Hunter also mentions that he has his own regrets, and this likely hints to his regret of not trying to rescue Crosshair earlier, despite knowing that he was brainwashed by the inhibitor chip back in Season 1.
We're loyal to each other, not some empire. You weren't loyal to me.
Clearly, the two have made their respective mistakes, but the only constructive thing left to do would be to move forward. Crosshair looks up to see an ice vulture flying, and this vulture has had a recurring presence throughout the entire episode and in Crosshair's Season 2 episode as well. Back then, I was unsure as to what the ice vulture could have meant, but perhaps in this case, as we see the vulture soaring through the sky, it symbolizes Crosshair's guilt about his past actions being lifted and liberated, that he is now able to re-embrace his brothers. So that's all for this breakdown. Let me know what you think and be sure to like and subscribe. I'm the Lost Acolyte,
and I have spoken.